I want to bring in David Curley in Washington, D.C. David, I want to ask you about this because as the situation is still developing on this, and we have reports from Los Angeles police that, in fact, several people have been shot, that coming from the LAPD themselves. But if you can address the issue, though, of ground traffic and as far as any of the operations that's going on at the airport right now.
Well, the FAA has just told us there is a ground stop, which means no planes are leaving, no planes are landing at LAX right now while this active situation takes place in Terminal 3. I don't know what you've told the audience so far, but this is on the north side of the airport. If you've ever been to LAX, it's a big U. This is the beginning of the U, Terminal 3, mostly domestic carriers there. Guns at security checkpoints have been a problem for the TSA for a long time. I'm not suggesting we don't have enough information to say that this has anything to do with this situation, but generally, there are a lot of people who actually show up at airports with loaded weapons and go to the security checkpoints. In fact, just last week, there were 39 weapons found at security checkpoints at airports around this country by TSA officers, and of those 39, 32 of them were loaded. This has been a continuing problem for TSA. Once again, I'm not suggesting that this had anything to do with this shooting. We don't know what the motive is or how this actually went down, but this is a continuing issue that they're very concerned about.
David, I apologize because I was actually listening to my producer and I missed part of what you had said there, but was that particular finding, did that address LAX specifically?
No, that's in general across the country. One of the worst airports actually is Atlanta Hartsfield. TSA says on average, one weapon a day is found in Atlanta. So this is a nationwide problem. People showing up at security checkpoints with their weapons, thinking they're going to go through. And as I said last week, 39 weapons, 32 of them loaded, the vast majority with ammunition inside the weapon at a security checkpoint. But once again, and just want to make sure that we don't conflate these two right now. It's too early to say whether this had anything to do with the shooting that has happened at LAX.
Security at the airports, of course, always on the minds of any traveler, almost at any time of the year. David, thank you for that. I want to go to our Cecilia Vega, who is standing by in Los Angeles as well. And Cecilia, what do we know? Because I know the situation is very active right now.
You're right, Dan. Exceptionally fluid out here. But I want to tell you about a report that's just coming in from my colleague, Aaron Katursky, who's revealing an amazing eyewitness account from the field out there, saying that an eyewitness is telling him that a fairly young gunman with some kind of rifle came down, as David Curley was saying, outside of the security area, and that the TSA agent who was holding this eyewitness's shoes as he was going through security was one of the people who was shot. He says that he heard the gunman ask, "Are you TSA?" It's unclear at this point if these were targeted shootings. Obviously, we don't know that. It's way too early. But I can tell you what we have seen out here from our affiliate who has a helicopter flying overhead. Some pretty graphic images of a TSA agent bleeding as he was running to safety to an ambulance, being escorted by armed Los Angeles police officers wearing riot gear. These officers had their guns out as they were escorting these workers to safety. We've seen at least two people in this aerial footage in wheelchairs, so we can presume that there are at least two people who are injured. We know from law enforcement sources that several people have been shot. As David said, flights are delayed right now, grounded at LAX. This is a really fluid scene. It just happened a couple of hours ago. So we'll stay on it and we'll bring you the latest as we watch what's happening at LAX.
Cecilia, do we know at this point, and I know because it is so very preliminary that we're not trying to get ahead of ourselves on this, police and obviously the FBI have also taken over the scene at this point. Has the airport been evacuated? Is it on lockdown?
You know, we don't know at this point. Our colleague David Wright is on his way to the airport, so I'm sure we'll get the answer to that pretty quickly. What we do know is that it's being described as chaos right now. We've heard from social media that passengers were essentially, and airport workers were on the tarmac, trying to get to safety. What's unclear is where this is all happening. We've heard from some witnesses that it happened near security. We know that there were multiple shots fired. Again, don't know what kind of gun. Still really fluid and really early out here. But as soon as we get some of these answers, we're going to get back to you with those, Dan, for sure.
And Cecilia, forgive me, I'm not terribly familiar with Terminal 3 or Los Angeles Airport and that particular part of it. How closely, though, is Terminal 3 as far as the security checkpoint and the main entrance to the airport? Is it a short distance? I know it's the northernmost terminal.
As much as we travel in our business, that's not one of the terminals that I travel regularly from. But here's what I can tell you about LAX is one of the busiest airports in the country. And this terminal, Terminal 3, is the home of Virgin. It's the home of Spirit, among a number of other airlines. Virgin is a hugely popular carrier in Los Angeles. You can only imagine that at this hour on a Friday morning before a weekend, it was probably very busy. And by the number of witnesses that we're seeing coming forward on Twitter and other social media sites, clearly a lot of people saw what happened out there today.
Clearly, and obviously the situation is still very much in development at that. Cecilia, I'm going to let you get back to that because I know that you are still gathering information as LAPD are revealing some more as they are still on the scene, obviously in a very active mode right there.